Well, obviously a very challenging time, not only within San Diego State athletics, obviously within the community and the world as a whole, as we deal with something unprecedented. This is something we've obviously in our lifetimes have never seen, and continue to work with all of the different groups that are out there. We work internally with our student athletes and our coaches and our staffs, really trying to support that group as best we can. Very difficult for our student athletes and coaches, especially those that did not have the opportunity to finish their seasons, whether it was winter championships or those spring seasons that are really just getting up and running. So we continue to work with them to understand what the rest of this semester will be. Campus is open. Classes have moved. After today, we'll move to virtual classes. Dorms are going to be open for those students that want to stay at this point in time. So we'll continue to work with campus and our student athletes and our coaches to understand what that looks like as we move towards the end of semester, supporting them academically. Those students who, from a sports medicine standpoint, rehabilitation or whatever it may be, making sure that we're addressing all of those needs. With our staff, we're trying to figure out what to do. For those of you who may not have seen, the NCAA sent out guidance today that we're in a recruiting dead period through April 15th. So coaches are able to still reach out to recruits via phone or text message or whatever it may be, but there's nothing in person going forward, at least through April 15th, and we'll continue to look at look for guidance from the NCAA from an eligibility standpoint, especially for those students who didn't get an opportunity to finish their sporting season. That's something it's going to be dynamic going over the next couple months, and we'll work with the NCAA to figure out what those eligibility options are going to be for those student athletes. So that's pretty much it at this point. Obviously, we'll close with this. We've had a really fantastic year up to this point. As you look at a Mountain West Conference regular season championship for our women's soccer program, football doing what they did, another bowl game in our transition to Brady. We had a couple great hires with men's soccer and volleyball. And you look at our men's basketball team, obviously the greatest season, Aztec men's basketball's ever seen. Someone kind of, right there with them. Our women's swim and dive team had the greatest season they've ever had. They shattered the point total at the Mountain West Conference championship, and we're about to send their largest number of student athletes they'd ever sent to the NCAA swim and dive championships. So that's been very hard for them. Our track program was at the indoor championship when it ended. So very challenging for those student athletes. So I'll take questions at this time.
What was the toughest conversation you had to have with the basketball program, be it a player or coaches, or what was the most difficult part of talking through this with them?
Hey, and it goes for men's basketball, but it goes for every other one of our sports that was still competing is, those kids had no idea when they stepped off the court in Vegas, or our women's lacrosse team stepped off the field, I think it was last Sunday or last weekend they beat George Mason, that those seniors potentially walked off the court for the last time as wearing Aztec gear or as a competitive student athlete. And it's hard enough when you do it for the last time and you know it's the last time, but it's even more difficult to find out later that, oh my God, I may have just played my last game. So that's probably been the hardest thing, is helping them, come to that reality of they had a phenomenal season. They had a legit chance to win the national championship and do something that, no other men's basketball team had done, at San Diego State, or a team since the men's volleyball team had done it to win a national championship. So that's wrapping your mind around that is extremely challenging.
Can you describe the process and the chaos of just the last 24 hours? How you've gotten information and given it to everyone below you, and how it's gone?
It's literally, I can't tell you how many times we did some video messaging for our staff, students, coaches over the last couple of days. At first we were going to do an all staff, and then a couple of people were like, do we really want to all get in the same room together, be that close together? So it's like, okay, we'll do some video. And literally we would tape the video segment, and either while taping it or right after taping it, new information rolled in. Whether it was via email from the NCAA, whether you got a phone call from across campus. So it's just having the flexibility to respond as we move through these different pieces. So I half jokingly told somebody the other day, at AD school there was not a chapter on pandemics. So it's everywhere in the world today. I mean, everybody is dealing with, the what ifs. Finding out this morning that pretty much every school district in San Diego is closing for the foreseeable future, and now how do we work with our coaches and staff, not only within athletics, but within the university and within the community? How do you handle that? So it's something new every couple minutes, it seems like.
I know this is way too soon to even understand if this is possible or what it might look like if it is possible, but there's a lot of national discussion about extending eligibility for athletes, maybe especially in spring sports that really didn't start their seasons, except for maybe baseball. If that eventuality took place, just what are your personal thoughts? That triggers a number of other things, in terms of cost and logistics and other things. But if that ever came together, what are your thoughts on that?
Again, that's going to be a situation that we're going to work through the rest of the semester. It's that opportunity to finish what you started when you had no idea that it was going to be taken away from you. It will create some unique challenges as far as roster size, the cost of scholarships. Let's just, and there's no basis for this. This is just John David Wicker pontificating. Say you had 6 seniors and 4 of them want to come back and apply for a waiver, and the NCAA says, okay, those 4 student athletes can come back. You still keep your regular roster size. You've got your regular scholarship limits, and then those 4 students can come back at the scholarship that they had, whatever it was, and now it's on you, the institution, to figure out how to pay for it. And then once that season's over, you're back to regular roster management and all that. So I have no idea how the NCAA will handle it. I think it was Pat Forty was talking about his son, who's a swimmer at the University of Georgia, and going into the national championships next year, and how it's just gut-wrenching. But it's also life. I mean, this is a life lesson that you're going to learn, and it's a really harsh life lesson. But how many of you around here have had a very harsh life lesson? And, that may end up being what it is. We've all had them, and my preference would be to, find some way to help make those kids whole, but we'll see what it ends up being.
I don't know how much you can speak to this, or if you let's get to this, but do you know what the discussion was as far as postponing the tournament versus canceling altogether, or was there?
We weren't a part of that. That was at the Board of Governors level with the NCAA. Those were decisions that were, made by that body in that room, and they let us know.
There's one, obviously, that is conservative right on top of it, but one of the things with the College World Series and spring sport championships, which might not be until June, which is a long time out. Are you surprised or just disappointed in the NCAA that we decided to cancel all of it?
No, I mean, I think the hard part is, the College World Series is, the month of June, but really looking at it, and you look at what you've seen in other countries, and you take that, and in your mind you try to figure out what would that be. Well, let's say we can't play again until, let's say it started, the tipping point was around the, mid-April, end of April. Well, then you've got to get teams back together. You've got to get everything figured out, and all of a sudden, you can start playing games the second weekend in May, but so what, you have one more week of the regular season, and then you try to determine who should go to the College World Series. I think it was going to be hard to create the body of work that would allow you to put the appropriate teams into that championship. And, I mean, you have to make some decisions from, a financial standpoint of how long do I keep waiting when, that's costing dollars that, it might not be smart to spend those dollars knowing that We're going to have to figure out with the NCAA. I mean, the NCAA basketball tournament's 80 to 85% of the NCAA budget. So right now you're kind of trying to figure out how do I conserve dollars as well. And again, that's my opinion. But it's just hard to know who could you put into a championship in June when you didn't play the regular season.
Have you started to look ahead and figure out what kind of residual financial hit this will have just on your program?
I mean, there's so many things that go into it. The one thing I can say is the majority of the revenue that we would generate internal to San Diego State is in through basketball and football. So, but you start getting into conference revenues, what's the NCAA going to do for basketball shares? Are we just going to say, because you can't say, hey, San Diego State was going to get 6 shares because we thought we'd make the Final Four. Do you take those shares that were going to fall off this year and just say, you know what, we're going to act like this year never happened and everybody's getting the same payout that they did last year based on the NCAA tournament? There's a lot of things to figure out. There'll be some impact, but I don't know that it'll be a huge impact at this point, but it's still yet to be seen. I mean, obviously we're going to save money traveling and those types of things. I don't know that we'll get money back from airline tickets that have been purchased, but we're going to get credits going forward. So it'll be a little while to figure that out.
A little bit, maybe not quite off topic, but you talked about record books. You talked about your track and field team set several program records for relays. Are those going to stay? Will all the accomplishments for the spring sports athletes, specifically, will they be part of this athletic history of San Diego State?
I mean, I would assume at this point that, we've played the season that we've played until now, and it's just it ends at this point. So anything that's been accomplished to this point will be considered. I mean, the year Major League Baseball canceled the season, didn't have a World Series and lost half the season, I assume, I don't know, did the records, Tony Gwynn's batting average still stands to this day. Yeah. So, I would assume everything still stands.
Is the athletic department taking any measures to maybe, for your department to maybe work from home or online like other departments on campus?
We're still playing that by ear, looking for guidance from, across campus. Again, the campus is still open. Obviously, we'll work with people as they, whatever their particular situation might be or whatever their feelings are towards what's going on in the community right now. We'll try to have ultimate flexibility with people, but still want to ensure that we're supporting our students, our student athletes, coaches, and staff appropriately.
Just from a human standpoint, how weird is this? How surreal and how much your job has changed in the last week?
This is, again, it's unprecedented. It has been surreal. We were talking earlier, I told my wife last night, I'm like, be prepared. I'm going to be home every weekend until literally August potentially. And she was like, well, that's fine. I've got plenty for you to do. So, but it is those types of things. And it's addressing those, we're going to have people that struggle with that. I mean, you've got, coaches who are baseball coaches, softball coaches. I mean, they're used to being out there and traveling or in the dugout and those types of things through, the end of May. And I mean, it's different. So, I hope, and, not being able to recruit and do all those types of things, basically you can't really leave. I'm hoping people will take the opportunity to really, engage with your family and, do those types of things. Take this, it's a terrible circumstance, but, they gave us lemons. Let's go make some lemonade if we can figure it out.
Assuming you wouldn't furlough anybody, but some of the airlines are asking employees to take voluntary vacation. Will you do that since we're basically sitting around for the next 3 months?
I don't know that we'll encourage anybody to voluntarily, step away from their job or anything like that. We've had no conversations about anything like that. My expectation is, that will all continue moving forward. Now, come spring break and you've got no sports here, as you look at what would typically be an NCAA rule that if you're not in season and there's a vacation, then, the kids can't work out. I think we'll probably encourage people to take advantage of spring break and, take the time with your family and use some vacation. And, again, start looking at the things that you can do to, one, prepare for next year, but what are the things in your life holistically that I haven't been able to do because I work hard, I enjoy my work and those types of things. So we'll see. Again, like I said, my wife's got a long list of me to holistically look at.
What's the policy going to be of any athletes who might want to come and use the weight room or look out into the facility?
Right now, we have basically told all teams that through Sunday, we suspended all team activities through Sunday. We'll have further meetings today with across campus to understand what all of that looks like. Again, campus is open, the ARC is open, and other pieces like that. I just don't know where we'll be with a full team practice versus an individual workout versus a voluntary workout, those types of things. That hasn't been decided, but our goal is that by Monday we'll be able to let our coaches know this is what it looks like going forward.
So like for football, you're still trying to figure out, they weren't in actual games, but they're in practice. How does that go?
All of our sports are in some type of season, whether it's an off-season, 8-hour segment, spring practice segment, regular. We'll figure that out. And again, our goal is to know by Monday what that looks like. But that's not to say that on Tuesday something happens that changes, 6 things here, and we have to adjust.
I think a lot of regular students have been told, go ahead and move out of the dorms, whereas like athletes, they kind of just wait for the game and see what the deal is.
Students have been given the opportunity. They can stay in the dorm or they can move home. And again, we'll work with our students to figure out what's best for them.
This is, as you said, unprecedented. There's no playbook again to do something like this. Going through this process, if heaven forbid something like this does happen again sometime, is there something that everyone in the world learn with some of this to maybe stop it from being the point where we are now, or doing it differently in the decision-making process? What can you take us moving forward?
My background's event management, so you're always planning for these types of things. The big thing is you can't ever set a plan in stone because no emergent situation is ever the same. So, hopefully people, will learn from this, figure it out, will, learn communication pieces. That's a lot to unpack, I guess, at this point in time. But there will be lots of opportunity, in the coming months to sit down and figure out what would we have done differently, how can we plan for this effectively going forward. We'll see.
What's it like for day-to-day operations for you, obviously overseas sports on campus and not having that? How does that change, I guess, your daily work moving forward?
Again, it's so new right now. I was, talking with somebody earlier. I've got some files in my office that literally go back 4 or 5 ADs back into the late 90s. So I'm going to do a little house cleaning. But also we've still got, a stadium to build. We've still got fundraising, all those types of pieces with Mission Valley. There's still a lot of work to do. How we go about it may change a little bit. You may be doing a lot more meetings by, Zoom or FaceTime or whatever it may be, but we've still got a lot of work to do. We're still running an athletic department. We're still getting ready for, football and the fall sports next year. We've got renewals out for basketball right now. So the world hasn't, while it feels like the world has just stopped and maybe come to an end, it's a time period, and we've got to be ready to move forward as soon as we can. So, you had a question?
I just want to know if this would have any effect on your work in Mission Valley at all.
Right now, we're still, our group is meeting with the city as we look at the final pieces of the purchase and sale agreement. We're still going to be we're building out the experience center. We're still going to be talking to donors. We'll be getting into that ticket sales standpoint. There's some new unique pieces to it, but we're still full steam ahead.
If I'm hearing you correctly, is there a chance that spring sports could practice but not play, or can you mediate with the Mountain West? Just competitions had practice.
There was nothing in the verbiage from the Mountain West yesterday about practice. We're going to have an athletic director's call next, I believe it's Monday, where there'll be some discussion about that. The SEC came out, and I think they've paused everything through April 15th. So we'll see. But right now, again, right now we're on complete hiatus until the end of the weekend, and we'll know something more next week.
Do you think a week or two from now, if it looks like the crisis is past or peaked, that there's any chance they can recover any of this week?
No.
With the NCAA saying the spring activities can happen over the year, that would, of course, as you said, impact all sides. Recruiting classes. If someone then maybe wants to get out of the weekend because they don't think they'll be able to play as quickly as they would have otherwise, is there a agreement to let recruiting classes, kids out of there's an intent you might want to go to a junior college somewhere?
I mean, at this point, there's so much that hasn't been decided yet. I'm sure I don't know. I mean, at this point, again, we're still working through all what that is. It's all very new, but that, the NCAA, I think, wanted to put some guidance out there that, it's something that we're going to seriously consider, and we'll create the rules for it as we move forward in the next, hopefully couple weeks.